Hey, buddy. So here's why anxiety meds don't work for everybody. And if you don't take anxiety meds, but you do experience from time to time, this is also still a fairly important lesson for you, okay? So it comes down to this. There are two ways that we experience life, okay? There's a way that we experience it physically, which you could say is factually. And this is how our body experiences things, okay? The example would be it's a blue sky. So I can see it's a blue sky. It's kind of factual. My eyes are receiving it. My brain translates it. And then there's another way, which is a more conscious way. It's self-awareness. So I'm noticing that I'm experiencing a blue sky. Okay? So two important different ways. Now, when it comes to anxiety, we discovered in the 60s that when people are anxious, and it started obviously with animal experimentation, their amygdala lit up. So what they're saying is that's our fear center. So we take in stimulation from the outside, and then we decide based on either inherited experiences or learned experiences from previously in our life that there's something to be fearful of. And then we have a stress response. And part of that stress response could be feeling anxiety about what's happening. Okay? Now, this is what we thought. And so the medication that we developed in the 60s, which really hasn't changed much since then other than I guess becoming more specific and having less side effects. But the technology hasn't changed that much. So think of things like benzos and Xanax. So what's happening is we experience some stimulus from our environment. Our body says potential threat, and then we have a stress response, and part of that stress response could be anxiety. Now, physiologically, you might experience things like a rapid heart rate or like irritable gut, dry mouth, brain fog, like an inability to speak or to recall things, sweaty palms. There's a lot of ways we can experience this, okay? And so that's your body's response. Now, things like Xanax are pretty good at dealing with the physiological response because it's gonna affect how the amygdala signals what to do from a physiological standpoint. Now, there's the other part of us that experiences life as it's happening. And you could say that's more of like the conscious mind, and these medications don't touch that. So what happens is you can say you have social anxiety and you go to a party and your body's like potential threats all over. Xanax is going to help your body from having a reaction to it, but meanwhile your mind is still saying like, I'm super anxious right now. So you're still feeling anxious, although your body's not really suffering from it, so to speak, but your mind still is. And we didn't really have medication for this. And it's probably because we don't really understand consciousness. We don't really understand the mind, so to speak. We don't even really understand self-awareness, okay? And part of that is the confusing thing about dealing with the human mind is these ideas of like virtual translocation, right? Where from our understanding, most other animals are like here, and then it's just like they're seeing the factual things. Like I said, the one area of awareness is how your body responds. So other animals would be like, there is food, there is a reproductive partner, there is water, and we can be like, oh, there's water over here. I'm noticing it, and that reminds me of this other time where I found water in a similar situation. And then like, what if I run out of water in the future? How am I going to do this? Maybe I should save some of this. Maybe I should find a way to store it. And so that's what makes this kind of weird. And we don't really understand the mechanisms of that. And so we can't really create mechanistic medicines to treat it. Now, there are options out there. People are studying this, and there are certain substances that might actually treat consciousness in a way. More research is to be done, but these are things like psilocybin and the likes. And that's very interesting. So stay tuned for, I guess, where that develops. I don't have high hopes because the early research shows it's kind of curative, whereas the model for most medicine is treat them for the rest of their life, so manage an illness. So if it cures it, we'll see if that ever sees the light of day. But I think that should be helpful. So you, as a person experiencing anxiety, what do you do about this? Well, something you can do is understand that you're an observer and your experiences are highly filtered, predominantly by past experiences. So you can say, like, I'm experiencing anxiety right now, which is different than saying, like, I'm anxious. So I'm experiencing right now. And then you can use it as, well, an alarm system. That's how I would do it. And I think that's anxiety when it's working its best. It's the instincts of telling you to, like, hey, wake up, pay attention. There's some kind of choice that needs to be made. There's some kind of action that you have to take. Okay? So if you're walking down a dark alley by yourself at night, say like you're leaving work, going to your car, and it's like you're feeling anxiety in this alley, that's your subconscious saying, like, we've read the environment, there's a potential threat, so just pay attention, be alert. And so you're just vigilant, you're looking out, and you get into your car, and you lock the doors, you drive away, and then you feel safe again. You don't feel anxiety anymore. But if you're at home by yourself, it's saying like on your couch or in your living room, and you're feeling anxious, you have to ask yourself, well, do I feel safe in this room? Hopefully the answer is yes. It's not true for everybody, but hopefully it's true. And then it's like, okay, well, if it's true, where did my mind just go? Because again, like I mentioned, that virtual translocation, our mind can go anywhere, past, future, outer space, wherever. And so it's like, where did I just go? And then if you can realize where your mind went, you can ask yourself, well, how do I feel about this? Because there's probably an underlying feeling. And to me, anxiety is really like an alarm going off. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and let's just say your smoke alarm's going off, that seems like a problem. Obviously, you would rather it not be going off. You can't really sleep. You can't really think. You can't function in life. But is the problem the alarm? And the answer is, well, not if there's a fire. Okay, and sometimes alarms just go off because of wiring issues, like hardware issues, but sometimes there's a fire, and so alarm's going off like it should to tell you, get out of bed and do something. You have a choice to make. I think that's what anxiety can do in our lives. It's like, it's an invitation to pause and say, what am I experiencing, and what's a more appropriate choice, or what action do I need to take to, say, potentially resolve something or prevent some kind of future catastrophe. And so if we approach anxiety like that as a tool that could be very helpful for us, I think we no longer continue to suffer from the penalties of anxiety, like what that can do to us. So next time you're feeling anxious, approach it with a certain curiosity. What's going on? What am I experiencing? What does this remind me of? What am I feeling underneath all this? Is it insecurity? Is it fear of failure? Is it ridicule, shame, whatever? And then you can work on those underlying feelings. It's really hard to just work on anxiety because it's an alarm. And again, sometimes there is a hardware issue and the alarm's going off for no reason. But sometimes it's just alerting you to pay attention to your life so you can make a better, more appropriate, or healthy choice. So let me know what you guys think about that. That's just a little tiny rant on anxiety, but I think it's an important lesson to learn. And hopefully it makes sense to you. It makes sense in my head. That doesn't mean it makes sense. So let me know what you think. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Bye.